The mining world of Varine 9 was not a beautiful place. It was a dry and rocky planet with orange dust that never seemed to settle. The twin suns burned hot in the sky and storms came without warning. But for humans, it was full of valuable metals, and that made it worth all the trouble. Among the many people working there was Eli Warren, a young human technician known for his clever hands and quick mouth. He fixed machines faster than anyone else, but joked more than he worked. Most people liked him, though some said he never took anything seriously. Life on Varine 9 was routine: work, eat, and sleep. The only entertainment came from the small bar in the outpost. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Eli sat there with his coworkers. The air was filled with laughter, noise, and the smell of strong drinks. His friends were teasing one another, daring each other to do foolish things. Then someone nudged Eli and pointed toward the corner. "Hey, Eli," one of them said with a grin. "See that alien woman over there? I dare you to go ask her to marry you." Eli followed their gaze. Sitting quietly at a table was a tall, broad-shouldered alien woman. Her skin had a soft purple hue and her eyes glowed faintly gold under the bar lights. She wore a miner's uniform that looked too heavy for a human. Eli recognized her, Lyra, from the Tharn species. They were strong, thick-boned beings built for high-gravity worlds. Humans often joked about their size, calling them slow or clumsy, though no one could match their strength in the mines. Eli laughed at the dare, shaking his head, but his friends kept cheering and pushing him. "Come on, Eli, scared? You talk big but never follow through." Something in him didn't want to back down. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was just another night of foolish courage. He stood up, straightened his jacket, and walked toward her table with a half-smile. Lyra looked up as he approached, calm and curious. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. "You already are," she replied softly as he slid into the seat. Her voice was deep but gentle, almost musical. He chuckled awkwardly. "So, how would you feel about marrying me?" There was a small pause. Her golden eyes studied him quietly. Eli expected laughter, anger, or maybe a slap. Instead, Lyra nodded once as if she were agreeing to a business deal. "Very well," she said. "If you wish to bind lives, we can begin tomorrow." Eli blinked, stunned. "Wait, what? Are you serious?" "In my culture," she said, "a promise spoken in public is sacred. You have asked, I have accepted." By morning, word spread through the outpost like wildfire. Eli had married the Tharn woman. Some laughed, some mocked, and some simply watched in disbelief. Even Eli wasn't sure what had happened. The ceremony was quick and strange, an exchange of oaths and symbols in the Tharn language witnessed by her people. Lyra seemed calm throughout, while Eli tried not to look nervous. At first, he treated it like a joke. He bragged about it to his friends and laughed off the whispers. But as the days went by, something started to change. Lyra never mocked him, never argued, and never seemed embarrassed. She simply treated him like a true partner. She cooked meals that smelled strange but tasted good. She helped him fix machines and worked beside him without complaint. Eli began to notice things about her: how steady she was under pressure, how she hummed softly while working with metal, how her big hands could shape delicate tools as if they were alive. When storms came and power lines broke, she always went out first, carrying heavy gear no human could lift. The other humans still laughed sometimes. "So, Eli," one worker teased, "how's life with your giant wife?" Eli used to laugh with them, but the jokes no longer felt funny. He had started to respect her more than any of them. One afternoon, a powerful quake shook the northern ridge. The alarm screamed across the outpost. A mining tunnel had collapsed with dozens of workers trapped inside. Dust and debris filled the air. Without waiting for orders, Lyra grabbed her exosuit and ran toward the site. "Lyra, wait," Eli called after her, struggling to keep up. She didn't stop. When Eli reached the tunnel, rescue teams were panicking. The supports were failing and oxygen levels were dropping. Lyra marched straight into the danger zone. The heavy rocks trembled above them, ready to fall at any second. Eli followed her inside, ignoring the shouts behind him. Inside the darkness, he saw her strength in full force. She lifted broken beams, pushed fallen machines aside, and carried wounded workers two at a time. The air was thick and hard to breathe, but she didn't slow down. When a metal wall cracked above them, she used her body to shield others from falling debris. Eli worked beside her, using his tools to reroute power and open blocked doors. "Over here," he shouted. "Vent systems are still working. We can send air through." Together they managed to open a path to the trapped miners. By the time they reached the surface again, they were both covered in dust and blood from small cuts. The survivors looked at Lyra with wide eyes. No one was laughing anymore. Eli stared at her in silence. The alien woman he had married on a dare had just saved 20 lives without hesitation. He remembered how calm she had been when he first met her, how she didn't care what others thought. Now he understood why. She was stronger inside and out than anyone he had ever met. That night the outpost was quiet. People were shaken but alive. Lyra sat outside the barracks looking at the twin suns setting beyond the mountains. Eli walked up beside her, unsure what to say. "You didn't have to go in there," he said quietly. She turned to him, her golden eyes reflecting the fading light. "You didn't either," she replied. He smiled a little. "Guess we both did anyway," Lyra nodded. When lives are in danger, there is no question. Action is the only answer. For the first time, Eli didn't see her as strange or different. He saw her as something more, a symbol of courage, patience, and quiet strength. He felt ashamed for how the whole thing had started. "Lyra, about the marriage," he said carefully. "It started as a stupid joke." "I didn't mean to—" She stopped him with a gentle gesture. "Intentions change," she said. "What matters is what follows." Her words stayed in his mind long after. In the following days, Eli found himself looking for her whenever he walked through the outpost. He started helping her more often, learning her methods and listening to her songs that resonated through the metal walls. She told him the Tharn believed every world had a heart, a rhythm that could be heard if one listened closely. He laughed at first, but one day while they worked deep in the mines, he thought he actually heard it, the faint hum of the planet beneath their feet. Then the sensors started showing strange readings. Deep tremors, unnatural vibrations, and bursts of energy rising from far below the crust. The scientists said it was probably aftershocks from the quake. But Lyra's face grew serious as she studied the data. "No," she murmured. "This pattern, it is not random. Something is stirring below." Eli frowned. "You mean like magma movement?" She shook her head. "Not magma. Something made. Something old." He didn't know what she meant, but the concern in her voice made him uneasy. She spent the night studying the maps of the tunnels, tracing lines that matched ancient Tharn symbols. Eli stayed beside her even when the others had gone to rest. When dawn came, the ground shook again, stronger this time. Dust rained from the ceiling. The warning sirens wailed across the outpost. Lyra stood up slowly, her expression calm but determined. "It has begun," she said. Eli's heart raced. "What has begun?" She looked toward the north, where the mountains trembled and cracks glowed faintly red. "The world's heart," she said quietly. "Something our ancestors buried long ago." Eli didn't know it yet, but the dare that had started as a joke had bound him to something far greater than he could imagine. The alien woman he thought he married for fun was about to change the fate of not only his life, but an entire world. After the Great Quake, Vereen 9 was never quiet again. Every few hours the ground shook like something alive was moving beneath the surface. The miners could no longer work safely. Huge cracks spread across the valley, and the colony's scanners picked up strange energy readings from deep underground. It wasn't normal. It wasn't even natural. The scientists didn't understand what they were seeing, but Lyra did. She stood in the command center looking at the glowing screens. Her face was calm, but her eyes were filled with worry. "This world is not just a mine," she said softly. "It is a sleeping machine. My people built it long ago." The humans in the room stared at her in disbelief. "Built it?" one officer said. "What do you mean, built it? You're saying this planet is artificial?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Not the whole planet, its core. It was once a forge, made to create energy for the stars. But something went wrong. My ancestors sealed it and left. They believed it would sleep forever." Eli listened quietly from the side. He had learned that when Lyra spoke, it was never without reason. Her voice carried the weight of truth. "And now it's waking up," he said. "Yes," she answered. "And if we do nothing, it will destroy everything within this system." The colony officials sent messages to the Central Corporation for help, but it would take weeks for any ship to arrive. In the meantime, the tremors grew worse. Whole tunnels collapsed. Energy storms burst from the ground like lightning from the soil. The order came from the main office: evacuate immediately. Everyone began packing to leave, but Lyra refused. She stood by the main gate as the transport ships prepared to take off. Eli ran to her, confused and angry. Lyra, what are you doing? We have to go. The planet is falling apart. She turned toward him, her golden eyes shining in the dust. If I leave, the machine will wake fully. If it does, there will be no place safe, not even in the stars. He stared at her, realizing she was serious. Then what can you do? I can stop it, she said simply. I know the old ways. I know the songs of the Tharn Forge, but I cannot do it alone. Eli looked back at the ships, ready to leave. The sky was dark with dust and lightning flashed across the horizon. Every voice in his mind told him to run to save himself, but his heart refused. He had once made a foolish promise to this woman as a dare. Now he knew what real promises meant. He took a step closer. Then you won't be alone, he said. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. Together, they turned away from the fleeing colony and walked toward the mine. The air grew hotter as they went deeper. The tunnels glowed faintly red from the energy pulsing beneath the ground. The walls hummed as if the stone itself was alive. Lyra placed her hand on the rock and began to hum softly. The sound vibrated through the tunnel like a deep heartbeat. Eli watched her carefully. You really can feel it, can't you? Yes, she said. The forge is calling. It feels pain. It was never meant to sleep this long. After hours of climbing and crawling through half-collapsed passages, they reached a vast open chamber deep under the surface. The sight made Eli stop breathing for a moment. The cavern was huge, larger than any city he had seen. In the middle stood a gigantic structure of black metal and glowing lines pulsing with light. It looked like a living heart made of machinery. Lyra approached it slowly. This is the Star Forge, she said. It was designed to create power for 1,000 worlds. But something went wrong in its code. It began feeding on itself. My ancestors sealed it here to stop the chain reaction. Eli stepped beside her, looking at the ancient machine. Can you fix it? I can quiet it, she said. But it will take both of us. They worked side by side, climbing across the metallic platforms and connecting broken conduits. Lyra sang in her deep voice, and the lights on the walls seemed to respond. Eli used his human tools to stabilize circuits and reroute the energy. It was hard work, and the heat was unbearable, but they didn't stop. Suddenly, the forge released a loud pulse of light. The ground shook violently. A voice echoed through their minds like a whisper made of thunder. It was not words, but feeling, anger, confusion, and endless hunger. The machine wanted to live again. Lyra stumbled, almost falling. Eli caught her arm. Stay with me, he shouted over the noise. I'm trying, she said, her voice shaking. It does not want to sleep again. They worked faster. Alarms screamed and molten energy began to drip from the walls. Lyra's hands glowed faintly as she pressed them to the control node. The core must be redirected. The energy must flow upward, into the atmosphere. Eli grabbed his datapad, sweating and coughing from the heat. I can open the vent lines, but the system's rejecting the command. Then do it manually, she shouted. He looked at her in disbelief. That's suicide. She met his eyes, calm even in the chaos. Then we die together. But the stars will live. He stared at her for a heartbeat, then nodded. Fine, let's finish this. He climbed across a narrow bridge toward the main power conduit. Sparks shot past his head and the metal shook under his feet. Lyra continued her strange song, her voice steady and strong. The forge seemed to listen, its angry hum softening for a moment. Eli reached the control panel and began pulling cables, forcing the energy through the vents. The entire chamber blazed with light. Lyra screamed something in her language, pressing her palms against the machine. The energy surged through her body and the light turned golden. Eli could barely see through the glare. He forced the last switch open and the power shot upward, through the tunnels, through the mountains, and into the sky. Outside, the colony ships flying away turned around as a massive beam of light rose from the planet like a pillar reaching for the stars. The tremors stopped. The cracks sealed. The forge quieted. The world was still. When Eli opened his eyes, everything was silent. He lay on the cold floor, his body weak and his vision blurry. Lyra was beside him, breathing heavily but alive. Her purple skin glowed softly in the fading light of the forge. You did it, he whispered. No, she said gently. We did it. They sat there for a while, the silence of the planet wrapping around them. The once angry machine now glowed faintly blue like a heartbeat finally at peace. When they returned to the surface days later, the colony was half destroyed but safe. The corporation officers were waiting. They didn't understand what had happened. They only knew that the planet had stopped tearing itself apart because of two people who refused to leave. One of them, a captain, looked at Lyra with awe. You saved this place," he said quietly. Lyra shook her head. "We both did." She glanced at Eli, who stood beside her, covered in dust but smiling faintly. In the weeks that followed, repair teams rebuilt the colony. The miners stopped laughing when they saw Lyra. They treated her with respect now, even admiration. Eli noticed that no one called her names anymore. She was no longer the fat alien girl. She was the one who saved us. One evening, as the twin suns set over the Orange Mountains, Eli and Lyra stood together on a high ridge. "The wind was calm for once, you know," Eli said softly. "I never really thanked you." "For what?" she asked. "For giving me a second chance," he said. "When this started, I was just a fool trying to make people laugh, but you made me see what courage really looks like." Lyra smiled slowly, the golden light of the suns reflecting in her eyes. "You dared to see me as more than others did." "That is courage too," he laughed quietly. "Guess that dare changed my life." "It changed more than that," she said. "It saved a world." They stood there in silence, watching the stars appear one by one in the violet sky. Two figures, one human, one Tharn, bound not by a joke but by something real. Their story would soon spread across the colonies. Told in whispers and songs, the human who married the alien girl on a dare, and how together they saved a planet from the fire of its own heart. And though Eli never thought of himself as a hero, he knew deep inside that he had found something greater than adventure. He had found understanding, respect, and a love that no dare could ever create.